Bases dropped. It is SDH AM. John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. And thanks for accessing us however you are doing so, large device or small. MLS previews in hour number one and a couple of MLS-y things in hour number one. We got a couple of guests to get into in hour number one. Hour number two, we'll get into CONCACAF and Champions League and all the news and all the other things. Batting leadoff, and like literally, I come on, and this particular individual, she's going to crash the party. Like literally, I start talking and she comes in. So we're just going to go ahead. We're not going to waste any time because her time is quite valuable. Good morning, Jess. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very proud that you're praising me for my punctuality. So thank you for that compliment this morning. And I can't believe it's MLS's back, right? It feels like, I always say this, and I know it's cliche, John, but maybe you'll agree with me. I feel like it's been forever, but also no time at all. And it's such a weird space to find yourself in that when you hear, oh, you got 8 weeks off, I didn't really have 8 weeks off because then I got booked for World Sevens. And maybe that's why it feels like no time at all. But I'm just glad. I'm glad we have football. I'm glad we have soccer. I'm glad MLS is back. And yes, I'm very glad that I'll be calling games on Apple TV, which is wild.
Yes. And your broadcast partner this season is?
I will be with Ian Joy.
Oh boy, that's going to be a quiet booth. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be no energy in that booth at all. I adore Ian, great human. I had the chance to commentate one game with him last season. Actually, it was my first on-site game. We went to Chicago together and did Chicago-San Diego. Fun fact about that game, my flight to Chicago got diverted to Detroit. And then I landed in Chicago, the first time I've ever been to Chicago, at 5 a.m. game day. And then because my flight got diverted because of the weather, it was terrible. And then I got very, very sick. So Ian Joy, the first time I met him, I was throwing up during the breaks in the commercials, but we still called a game. And Ian said from that moment, he said, Jess, that's when I knew you were a damn star, when you were able to get through the sickness, still commentate the game the way you did. You're a badass. There we go. We can get the explicit. You're a badass. You're going to speak to Casey tomorrow, and hopefully she'll say the same.
I talked to Casey yesterday.
Oh, she beat me. I thought she had the day after me.
No, she's got the day before you. She's
always. Well, I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but hopefully she said the same as me. I am going to miss her so much. And I actually texted her yesterday. I was like, and it's not against Ian in any way. We got so used to traveling together. It was lovely to travel. Imagine you're getting paid to do a job that you adore with a friend. And we were basically getting paid to go to New York. We were getting paid, we were having the best time traveling. So I'm going to miss Case. She's going to do incredible with Christian. And I think that, John, I've always been very firm about the fact I don't just want to be like a good female play-by-play. I want to be just a good play-by-play. That being said, female representation is very, very important, and just the accessibility and the representation that, it doesn't matter if we're a woman, it doesn't matter if we're a man. If we're doing a good job, we can get a game. To have another crew, by splitting us up, by having another crew that has female representation is really freaking cool. And Casey did the numbers, and it was pretty surreal. Out of 54 members of members of Apple TV on MLS on Apple TV team, I'm the only female play-by-play, and there's only I think 7 women. So it's pretty cool that we are 2 of those.
Well, and you guys are always the Wonder Twins here, so that's never going to change. I mean, that's always, it's, just that you're broken up, and Casey comes in Tuesdays at 10, so that's just so you know. Tuesday mornings.
Wow, she's got a recurring date. That is wow.
She's Tuesdays at 10, and so.
Well, hey, do I get my agent fee for Casey?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. I'll take 7 juice boxes.
Absolutely. There we
once
go.
Once they put Atlanta. Oh, did she talk about us patiently waiting our next 7 game assignments?
No.
because we are patiently waiting, and I for match days 8 to 15, because full disclosure, right now I don't have any Atlanta United games, so I'm patiently waiting for 8:15. There's a bunch of Wednesday games in that window. I'm
Mhm.
like, come on, put me on a Wednesday in Atlanta. Put me on a Wednesday in Atlanta. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah, how long do we have you this morning, by the way?
Let's go until 20 minutes past. 10 more minutes of charm. 10 more
Alright.
minutes of charm.
Alright, so in the 10 minutes of charm that we have you this morning, you get to take the pair of scissors and cut the ribbon on this season.
Oh, yeah. So fun fact, I didn't realize that until last week when I was looking at it. I just assumed that there would be another early kickoff or something. And then I looked, and it was because it was because when you work for when anyone that's listened to an Apple TV broadcast for MLS knows that there's a lot of commercials, there's a lot of different reads, there's a lot of different components for a play-by-play. It's a lot of moving pieces. So obviously it's nice to watch someone else do it first, to be like, okay, so this is where the player spotlight goes, this is where the blah 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 goes, this is what, well, that's not good,
Mhm.
that's me. And I mean, when I figured I had like a moment of, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to like watch, and then I was like, oh my god, I am opening the seat. I'm going to say the 2026 MLS season is underway, and it's not just for these two teams, it's the entire season. So an incredible amount of trust on the part of Major League Soccer that they picked me to be able to do that. It's something that I've dreamed of doing. I'm going to treasure, and I think that with 2026 being such a marquee year for this sport in this country that I've called home for, what is it now, 13 years? Wow, 13
Mhm.
years. That's going to be really incredibly special. And you know what? I'm just going to read through my rundown 27 million times. Hopefully, our producer gets it to me on Friday. But I actually have three 2:30 p.m. kickoffs in a row. I mean, because I have Chicago match week 2, that's a 2:30 kickoff. And then I have a NYC game at Yankee Stadium, which I'm not American, but I know that's pretty cool that I'm going to be calling a game at Yankee Stadium
The
still.
the
Just
sight
like,
lines are awful.
yeah, oh, I'm calling that game off a monitor. I know that already. I did the game at City Field on decision day with Casey, and it was cool. It's still cool being in the stadium and feeling it and being able to pick your head up a little bit for like big picture stuff. Um, but yeah, the good thing is I have a lot of experience, John Nelson, in calling a game off a monitor, so that won't throw me off too much.
Yes, concur. St. Louis, they are a team in transition
Yeah.
and, in a bunch of different ways. New coach, Joao Klaus no longer there, he's with LAG, and there's a lot of storylines with, All Caps SC as they prepare for Charlotte, so it's an interesting one that you get.
Oh, I think it's a really interesting game, mainly because St. Louis is just such an incredible soccer city. When you look at the history of this team and you look at the first season they had and how remarkable it was that they topped the Western Conference, and then from there, it's been a bit of a plunge, right? It's been a downward
Mhm.
spiral. And I want to give you a shout out for a fantastic episode with the guys at Ball Watching. I have been enjoying and consuming their show. Uh, Secret, that's one of my favorite ways to prep, just because I think you get a fan's perspective. Obviously, I do all my numbers and all my research myself because I have trust issues with, not that they're not a reliable source, but if I'm going to lay on a number and die up by my sword and the number, I'm going to make sure it's my number I pulled. But
Yep.
it just gets you the context of the feelings and the understanding, and just at the end of the day, my audience is fans, so why wouldn't I want to understand how the fans are feeling in this moment? So shout out to those guys. They dropped a new episode last night, so actually when I get off here, I'm gonna go for a walk with my dogs and I'm gonna listen to that. But I think with St. Louis, the Joao Klaus leaving is a huge part of it, or selling rather. Great business financially. I think that's important to note first. From a business standpoint, it does make sense, but from a soccer playing standpoint, not so much. Particularly, I know they're linked with the Venezuelan player, but I would assume he's not going to be ready for the Charlotte FC game right now. So the depth, it isn't there in the forward position. You've also lost a marquee player. Then you've got everything that Edouard Leuven is going through. What an amazing human being, by the way. Just listening to him to speak, and the transparency and everything that his wife is going through and he's going through as a human being, and to keep his faith, it is remarkable. So just a player that I think everyone should be rooting for, But at the end of the day, a reminder that soccer is just as, I know we talk about soccer being our lives and it's very important to us, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a sport, and our health and our family should be top of everything. So that's going to be an important storyline, how much he can feature, of course. And I think the club and the media are handling that very well with the support they're giving to him. I always look at goalkeepers, as you know, is Roman
Mhm.
Berkey designated player now? Is he going to live up to that title? He obviously couldn't keep fully fit last season, which I think was very costly. Roman Berkey has been an incredible goalkeeper throughout his career. He's been called upon a lot with St. Louis's defense last season and then was out injured. Is he going to look like a designated player goalkeeper? Because I'm there for goalkeepers getting their money. I'm there for goalkeepers getting their tag. But to use a DP spot on a goalkeeper is very, very, very
That's brave.
brave and not heard of. So they want to make sure that they're rewarded with that. So I'll be watching Roman Berkey, and then just obviously the May coming in. We can ignore Celtic and Wilfred Nancy and the reputation he got there overseas, because people overseas, well,
Mhm.
they will never.
Mhm.
It just gave people an idea to slag off. Can I
Mhm.
slag off? I haven't used that in a long time, but yeah, that's what they were doing. They were slagging off MLS, slagging off Wilfred Nancy.
Mhm.
He's still a legend. I still think he's an amazing scholar. I love listening to him talk about the game. So for DeMay to have learned under someone like Wilfred Nancy, I'm excited to see what he can do. His principles seem very clear, that he wants to be a protagonist. I love how he used that word several times in the media, that he wants to be a protagonist, right foot forward. John, we can probably go an extra 5 minutes, by the way, just so you know.
Sure thing.
Protagonist. So yeah, just seeing it all transcribe on paper is going to be fascinating. But St. Louis needs goals, and they need to uh, strengthen their defense, and most importantly, they need their stadium to become a better stadium in terms of results, because the energy is incredible, looks beautiful on pictures. Can't wait to go there with 22,000 plus fans. Soccer specific stadiums just are so amazing to call a game from, because you're so much lower than the American football games. I am not team binocular. I've That's no disrespect to Jason and Maddie. I love that they are. I just can't. I get dizzy using, like, I've never been
I'm
able to use it in a game. I
I'm
just can't
I'm
do
team
it.
I am team bifocals. I am team
Yeah.
progressive lenses. I can't do
Yeah,
binoculars.
I can't do it. My contact lenses, my eyelashes, everything gets in the way, and then no. So to be in a soccer specific stadium as a commentator, I'm very excited for that. But they need to turn it into a fortress, because uh, I don't have I think they only had 4 wins last season or something dire at home last season. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I remember seeing it and being like, oh, you're
Mhm.
not going to make the playoffs if you're not winning games at home.
And at the same time, you mentioned GK Union, and the flip side for the folks coming in, what you were talking about with all caps SC, kind of the same with Charlotte, because Christian Kalina has to stand on his head and be a warlock and
Hmm.
protect that back line there. And so it's it looks like the offense is there for Dean
I
Smith
tell
and
you, this
Charlotte.
game, if I like like over under is just
Take
goals
the
scored,
over.
right?
Take the over.
Plus 4 at least goals, right? It just has that feeling about it. I mean, the only time these teams have ever played each other in MLS was 2023, and it was 3-1 St. Louis. I commentated that game with Willie P, your next guest. Look at me making plugs for you. There you go.
Hey, there you go.
You can ask Willie P about that game. But Enzo Capetti scored for Charlotte. We all thought they were going to pick up the victory, and then a Bill Tuiloma own goal, and then just catastrophic mistakes from Charlotte led to them losing 3-1. So I think this game has a knack for goals, honestly. Christian Kalina had a wake up call last year in
Mhm.
terms of getting pulled out the lineup and realizing that his place isn't guaranteed, but just a good human being, a fantastic goalkeeper, athletic, and just a good, like I said, a good human being. I've loved getting to know Christian Kalina to the extent that, these players from Charlotte have said well done to me. It's pretty cool, and I'm excited to say hi to them in person and commentate their game. Big thing though is Adilson Malanda, and Dean Smith has kind of kept his cards close to his chest. He's playing it cool, saying, "Look, I think we've done a great," and they might have done a good job of filling the cracks, but I still think you're filling the cracks. I watched the Minnesota preseason game and the goal that Minnesota scored. I mean, Adilson Malanda keeps up with that ball. Tim Ream doesn't. That's the nature of it. Tim Ream has had an illustrious career, and it's going to mean a lot to him, I'm sure, to go to St. Louis, to play in St. Louis, on a personal level, obviously. But he's still getting older every day, and the pace is going to drop off continually. And I do think Charlotte can be exposed in that manner. But where Charlotte can be good is Idan Toklamati just looks fantastic, and I love the way that he plays. I know Willie P will say that he can score goals in more diverse ways than maybe Patrick Arjaman used to challenge, even though Patrick has shown in England that he has worked on levels of his goal scoring as well. But Luca Della Torre is the signing I'm most excited about. Watched him in San Diego a couple of times last season for season pass. When it was season pass back then, obviously now it's Apple TV. No season pass, everybody. No more paywall. You will watch on MLS on Apple TV. I've got to get that word season pass like kicked out my brain. It's not easy.
Big piece of paper with a big
Yes,
red.
just how I did when I commentated a Spokane game, making sure I put SPO-CAN, Spokane, not Spokane, Spokane.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of having notes with very big writing to make sure I don't F anything up. But yeah, I think Luca Della Torre is going to upgrade this midfield. That's no disrespect to Brant Bronico, just his vision, his connectivity, and also just having depth in the midfield as well, because as we know with the World Cup and the long break, it's going to be a steamroller in the before and the afters of the season. So having that squad depth is going to be huge as well.
Jess Charman, half of the Wonder Twins, with Ian Joy, who I guess turns into an honorary Wonder Twin. Or maybe he's the third Musketeer. We got to figure out what Ian's handle is going to be this season. You can come in on Wednesdays at 9:05 if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, when I can, I will. You know that. When I can, I will. This isn't a dig at Casey. I just have a 5-year-old obstacle that is a little bit more difficult than her doggy.
Than Owen?
I mean, she's got her dogs. She got her dog. But yes, it's a little bit tougher to work around that little rascal schedule. And also Atlanta schools, how are you going to plan winter break the week of the MLS season? I mean, out of all the times I need her to be in school, now is the time. But
this is what I'm saying. It's like you got to get the schools to orchestrate this. You got to be in line with the MLS schedule.
In line with the World Cup schedule. I mean, it will be in line. That'll be summer holidays, won't it? Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes. As always, it's great to hear your voice, and it's going to be great to see you and Ian there. And if you could pick me up a pink scarf and enjoy the food, with everything that I have sent you about that particular section of town, you will be well versed in everything.
Am I going to get my selfie with the arch? That's the most important thing, right? I've got to get my picture with the arch. That's the coolest thing about being on site this year. Like I've said, just the amazing cities. I mean, I've got St. Louis, Chicago, New York City twice, Montreal, Kansas City, and New England. So, I mean, I'm getting my air miles in, and I'm getting to visit some really cool places. So, I mean, it's a pinch me moment, and I am looking forward to seeing where I go weeks 8 to 15, and selfishly keeping my fingers crossed for a reunion in the Mercedes-Benz press box. And your food in the press box is pretty darn good, so I'm okay with that as well.
Food's pretty darn good in St. Louis. Go and spend time with the youngins, and then get your conference calls in, and we will be getting all the report cards from you from St. Louis, with St. Louis and Charlotte kicking off the 26 season. It's great to catch up with you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
2:30 p.m. You guys don't have anything else to do. Listen and cheer for me, because this is a big deal. All right. Love you. Have a good one.
Love you. Bye. There goes Jess. And now it's time to catch up with Will Palaszczuk and find out what's going on when it comes to the Charlotte side of things. The other half of the equation for the first match of the 2026 season.
Season was great, John. Thank you so much for asking. And, it was actually a quicker off season than I was used to because Carolina Panthers had a much longer season than they had in previous years with the late playoff run and obviously their playoff game in January created a little bit of a shorter off season for us. So not as much time for big trips, not as much time for everything else. But as it always is when it comes down to the way a season ends for a club, the offseason never feels as long as it is, but it always just kind of feels like the season sneaks right up to you, and it's like, where'd all the time go? So we're excited to get it going.
What are some of your larger takeaways from the 25 season when it comes to what you saw with Charlotte FC?
So I think the biggest thing was that it was such a roller coaster, I think, because we started out playing incredibly well, got ourselves up to first place in the league, and that was even a period of time where Dean Smith had said, look, we feel like we're leading a Charman life in terms of results. You don't feel like we're playing all that well, yet we're winning games. And and hopefully we can get the actual game playing right. And then you got into a point where you took on some water with the injuries. You had the 8 out of 10 stretch away from home, which really kind of derailed things. And that was a period of time where Dean Smith even said, look, I think we're not playing all that bad. I don't think we're that far off. We're just not getting the results. And there were a couple of different late results that didn't go their way. They were in Philadelphia. They had Kansas City where they lost a result. So there was some, I would say, lack of fortune in portions. There was also the unfortunate downturn in the middle of the season of Christian Kalina. So that part had kind of really derailed where the early start had gone. And then somehow, some way in July, just, the switch flipped. They win 9 games in a row. They get Nathan Byrne back. And I think we all very much underrated how much of a big factor he was into Charlotte FC's good play, particularly in the back line. They had a couple of positions that they needed to really sort out throughout the season, including left back, which never really felt like it was settled until they got Harry Toffolo. And unfortunately, Toffolo gets hurt in his first start. So it's even a situation where it's like, hey, you feel like you have this problem solved, and then all of a sudden you're having to go back to a bit of a Band-Aid program. So I don't think there was a point in time where after the month of, say, April, where you really felt like they were truly whole until you really got near, that middle part of July. And even then, Pep Biel goes out. And I would argue Pep Biel, if he's with Charlotte FC for the latter stretch of the run, maybe they finish in a better position. They don't have some of those fluky results at the end like Montreal and even some of the others. And also, I think they're advancing in the playoffs beyond the first round. I think they definitely missed him in that playoff series against New York City. An incredible anomaly in this brand new format, a home team that, wins its second game to force a third game, doing so on the road, and yet unfortunately unable to close a deal. A team that had really thrived on home form, 13 out of 17 in the win column in the regular season, but they lose 2 in the playoffs and in regulation. And so I think that the biggest thing I take away, John, is that so much of this team was really living on thin margins. And one of the things Dean Smith and Zoran Cornetta tried to address during this offseason is trying to make sure that those margins aren't as thin, to increase a little bit of the depth, but also I think a lot of it too is leaning on that core, which they feel like they've built over the first 2 years of Dean Smith's regime.
And then you look at the ins and outs when it comes to personnel. And if my numbers are correct, it's 10 individuals out and basically half of that coming back in. When you look at where things are now coming into the 26th season with the hashtag replacements, what do you think about the new looks and the new faces with Charlotte coming in?
So it's interesting, John, because like when you break it down like that, they did lose 10 senior roster players, but a lot of those guys weren't people who necessarily logged a lot of minutes. And it got very, very evident that Dean Smith did not have a lot of guys that he could trust to change a game off the bench, and a lot of players who had to play sometimes out of necessity, but weren't necessarily what he would consider to be choices he'd want to have to make. And so I think a lot of the trimming happened on the margins. Of course, the biggest loss was Adilson Malanda to Middlesbrough. Even though that transfer happened in the summer transfer window, he did not depart until the winter. So that was always going to be the biggest thing they had to replace. At the beginning of the offseason, Zoran Cornetta told us, he said, we need to obviously add, maybe 1 or 2 starters. But if we don't add a second starter, it more than likely is that somebody is taking over Adilson Malanda's spot within our program already. And they feel like they have that with Andrew Privet, who had a very, very good 2023. Dean Smith basically said that he was our player of the year in 2023. And as you know, in this league, John, it's very, very difficult to replace outgoing defensive talent that moves on as a result of a better opportunity. Going to the English Championship and being on the precipice of the English Premier League, I think we all can agree is something of an improvement for Adilson Malanda on his situation from Charlotte, despite how much they had been really taking care of him over the course of his time. So I do think it's an interesting situation in terms of how they went about the offseason, because they added at a position that I didn't think a lot of people they thought they would add it when they signed Luca De La Torre, who was, at least in my opinion, the biggest of the incomings from Charlotte FC's perspective. He presents somebody who, quite frankly, Charlotte FC's never had, a box-to-box 8 with offensive prowess. And that is not to denigrate or say anything bad about one of my favorites, Brant Bronico. It's just that's not what you go to him for. You go to him for grit. You go to him for defensive presence, and any offense you get out of him is a bonus. But they found out that they were missing that connecting pass that either came from the back line or Ashley Westwood up until Wilfred Zaha, Pep Biel, and the wingers, as well as Edon Toklamati. They did not have that particular level of the chain really taken care of. So they bring in Luca De La Torre. They also bring in Henry Kessler. They bring in David Schnegg, who, quite frankly, I think is a very, very shrewd signing because he would have started at left back for us last year. I think it's going to be a very interesting competition between him and Harry Toffolo. I think Schnegg will definitely get starts in the midweek because Harry is a little bit older, and Schnegg obviously represents somebody who they really feel very, very good about. They made changes at the backup goalkeeper position, getting rid of Drake Callender to go to Minnesota and bringing in Tyler Miller. And then the rest of the additions, so to speak, are going to be players who really kind of come in from the Crown Legacy additions and also guys who are, as I would call it, the sign and stash players, people who took the Toklamati route, who, sign with Crown Legacy and make their way up through the ranks. They brought in, a Morrison Ajima, no relation to Patrick. They feel very, very high about his particular plaudits. They brought in Rodolfo Oloco last season. They feel very, very confident about him. And then there are other guys who, Dean Smith has said so much about a healthy club is being able to finally start tapping your resources from within. So you may see Emmanuel Ochegbu get first team minutes after having a very stellar Crown Legacy season last year. They got a couple of draft picks who they really liked. The draft somewhat was a bit of a lost cause for Charlotte FC during the 2024 campaign, the 24 draft into the 25 season. They did draft Andrew Johnson in that draft, but he went back to college at Cornell. He's going to play mostly for Crown Legacy this year, but he's signing what we believe is a first-team contract here this year as well. And Will Cleary, who they liked as well out of this year's draft, can very well be a backup right back for them, maybe get some minutes at Crown Legacy as well, and kind of help fortify that depth. It's a long way of answering your ingoings and outgoings question, but I do think it's one of those things where there wasn't the flashy signing, John, but I think there were points in time where they made some shrewd moves. They took care of the margins, but they also, again, wanted to maintain a lot of that, at least front four core and that midfield core that makes them very, very tough to beat, and hopefully a little bit more offensively dynamic in 2026.
Okay, two dudes I have in mind for my next two questions, and I will let you tackle them in the order that you wish. Wilf Zaha and his adjustment to Major League Soccer, and Major League Soccer's adjustment to him,
Sure.
and the emergence of Edon Toklamati to my fantasy team, which I thank you for, by the way, and just his adjustment to what it was like to be up front in the attack for Charlotte. So dealer's choice, but you got to hit them both eventually.
I will get to Zaha first because his story has a lot of intrigue surrounding it for a lot of reasons, but foremost in that he's only under contract through the end of the month of May. His contract is up at the end of June. We obviously know they're not playing any games in June because of the World Cup. So really the next 15 games serve as a better, for no better word than that, a tryout for basically whether or not he's going to be the DP for Charlotte FC for the next year or plus. But I do think that near the middle part to the end part of the season, you saw a different Wilfred Zaha than you saw at the beginning of the season, absent, of course, the first game against Atlanta where, he took the league by storm with that one goal. But even Dean Smith said, look, he hadn't played a lot of competitive football over the previous 6 to 8 months. So there was obviously going to be an acclimation period, not only getting back to match fitness for him, but also getting himself used to this league. And you saw the league struggle to adjust to him. You saw him struggle to adjust to the league. The way the game is called is a lot different. But you saw a lot of the things that happened to him in the Premier League happen to him in MLS because of the fact that he was the most fouled player in Major League Soccer, just like he was the most fouled player in the English Premier League. He set a single season record for most fouls sustained, which is something that he did in the Premier League as well. So I do think it's a situation where you're going to see that happen again. But I think the one thing that he has brought it to the table is that, the team around him loves him. And I think they needed to get used to somebody who was on his skill level, but held them accountable. I think you had guys who held people accountable like Ashley Westwood, and that's not to say that Westy and Wilf are on different skill levels, but obviously Wilf does a lot more of the glamorous things like score goals, fiery assists, and obviously has that name recognition that is pervasive across MLS. And so when you hear it when it comes from that guy, people kind of jump back and are like, okay, how is that happening? And I think it even threw the fan base off a little bit, saying, man, this guy really just kind of belly aches and whines, when in reality all he's doing is saying, hey, I know your standard is better and my standard is at that level too, and I need both of us to be on the same page. And I think you're seeing a lot more of that kind of come throughout the regular season, and you saw it in the offseason as well. I think playing in the African Cup of Nations was something that he was very, very proud of, and I think has invigorated him as well. I expect a very intriguing season for him in 2026, and I believe, as long as he continues to produce, I think Charlotte FC wants him to stay. So that's very much a story to monitor. Idon Toklamati's story, obviously incredibly fascinating. The 11 goals he scored last year, it did kind of feel like after the hat trick against Miami that he did drop off. He went 6 games goalless at the end of the regular season and into the playoffs. So that is one thing that maybe represents a minor concern. But if you saw anything at the end of the Coachella Valley Invitational in California, you know that he's definitely on the mark. He had 2 very, very different goals, but that were set up in very, very similar ways because of crosses that came from the right, which is incredibly intriguing, knowing that Wilfred Zaha didn't really have a hand in the buildup with either of those goals. And you saw a player in Toklamati completely make no mistake and have incredible ingenuity. He can score goals in a variety of different ways, in more different ways than his predecessor Patrick Agyemang did when he was here. Although Patrick Agyemang seems to have found the header now that he's going to Derby County, which is something that I think a lot of Charlotte FC fans are wondering, like, where was that in your locker, Big Pat, when you were here in Charlotte FC? But one of the things that's intriguing about Toklamati is that they gave him the number 9 shirt before the season. They basically said, okay, we are basically putting this on your back. Zoran Canetta was very adamant at the end of the season and even during the summer transfer window, saying, we're not selling Idon Toklamati for any price. He is our player, and we want to keep him that way for the foreseeable future. So they believe in him, and they feel like they also have a good striker to kind of push him from behind, and Archie Goodwin. Archie kind of came here at the end of last season, didn't really get a lot of run up because he was still trying to get himself acclimated and obviously having an off season in Australia, not really up to full fitness yet. I feel like I will quote and reference the Goss theorem that Archie Goodwin may have a very good way of making sure that he pushes Toklamati to even greater heights in this upcoming year.
All right. So a couple of other questions, and thanks for hanging out as you always do for the preview and for the key moments during the season.
Sure.
With all of the shiny objects that we've been talking about so far leading into the 2026 season, give me someone who's second level that if things are going well for Charlotte, we should focus not just on Zaha, Toklamati, et cetera, Kalina, et cetera, but who are those second level dudes that would be key to the success for Charlotte in 26, you think?
The biggest question is what happens at right wing outside of the gentleman that you mentioned. And that's, I think, the biggest unanswered question outside of can they replace Adilson Malanda is what's happening at right wing. Kerwin Vargas ended the season at right wing. I think he had a very resurgent campaign. While the goals are still not there at the level that I think a lot of people want them to be, he is a better all-around player now than when he started with Charlotte FC in their inaugural season, coming over as at the beginning of the season transfer. He didn't start the year with the club, but he came over in the primary transfer window and was very, very effective in a lot of moments over the course of his campaign, but was very defensively limited. Dean Smith has gotten him to play a lot better defense, and that's why he's beaten Liel Abada out head-to-head. But Abada has looked very, very good in the preseason. He had 2 assists in that game that I referenced against Minnesota United that set up the 2 Idon Toklamati goals. It seems like there is an appetite from not only Dean Smith, but the front office to see what they have out of Liel Abada, just because of the fact that they put more money into him than any player they've had in their history. He's on a higher wage bill than anybody not named Zaha. And I do think there's a very much, this is where the rubber meets the road, because I know they tried to figure out whether or not they can get him either on a loan or put him somewhere else during this past offseason. They didn't like the number attached to him because the numbers just weren't there. The productivity was not there for a player who came out of Celtic with a lot of promise and somebody who Charlotte FC got at a significant discount because he wasn't a player that Celtic really wanted to have to move. It moved, obviously, because of the off-the-field circumstances involving Celtic and the situation involving what was happening in Israel. So I say all that to say, if Charlotte gets consistent productivity out of that right-wing position, that I think determines how high their ceiling goes. I think there's always going to be a consistent ceiling with regard to Wilfried Zaha and Idan Tuklamani and Pep Biel, but those three cannot do it alone. The thing that is going to make this engine roar is if you have the ability to provide a threat on the right side, because that gets Wilfried Zaha out of double and triple teams. That gets Pep Biel out of a crowded middle. That gets Idan Tuklamani away from stingy and sticky center backs. And that is what's going to put Charlotte FC in a position where they can score more goals, because while they scored a club record amount of goals, it still was not a situation where you felt like they scored enough down the stretch. And that was something that really bogged them down in the postseason. This is a team that, John, when it comes down to it, has scored one open play goal in the last two postseasons. Two, actually, now that I think about it, because the two open play goals in the last two postseasons in 6 games. Two open play goals in the last 6 games in season. And the season before that, they did score they scored 2 open play goals, but they also had a hat trick from Elias Manuel that they had to deal with against New York Red Bulls. So 2 open play goals in the postseason in the last 2 seasons. One was from Karol Swiderski against Orlando in game number 3. And the other was from Idan Tuklamani with a consolation goal in game 3 last year. They got shut out in the first 2 contests. Scoreless draw in game 2 and a 1-0 loss in game 1 on Alonso Martinez worldie. So I say all that to say, when the competition level gets to a point where you're playing the biggest competition, you're playing in the playoffs, you've got to find ways to score goals. And it's going to have to come from a threat on the right wing to support the other 3 front players. Because if it doesn't happen there, then Charlotte's going to look very predictable, and it's going to be a hard sledding for them when they try to move up in what is a very competitive Eastern Conference.
And my last question for you, you kick off the season as the curtain pull on 2026, and you get to go out to All Caps SC. And I was looking at, well, I feel like you have to say it. Everything's normal. You hit that 4-letter word, and you have to say it in all caps. But you look at the numbers, and the juice boxes have Charlotte as a decided underdog, which I find interesting going into Energizer. Juice boxes have St. Louis at plus 108 and Charlotte at plus 2.25. I thought that was a wide margin for you guys on the road going into a situation in St. Louis being what it is.
Yeah, and I find that to be incredibly head scratching, I would say, is the biggest thing. And this is not to be disrespectful of St. Louis, but if you look at where Charlotte is in their build and where St. Louis is in their build, they're 2 completely different situations. St. Louis is very much in a rebuild. They're on their 5th head coach in 4 years. And it's a situation where you're looking at a completely revamped game model. They're going to play 3 at the back, we assume, because that's what they looked like during the preseason. And you lost Joao Klaus. You lost a lot of firepower in the midfield. You still have Marcel Hartel Holiday in. If you
boy.
Up, then you take her friend. But at the same point in time, like, who's around him? Who's running with him? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to get the guy Cordova over the line in time for them to have him play on Saturday. So it's going to be possibly Simon Becker as the number 9 striker. Does that guy strike fear to your heart? Not necessarily. As a Jong Sang-bin, there's, I think, maybe a desire for them to play a little bit more possession, which could potentially go about looking from a standpoint where Charlotte FC is at. And maybe if you keep away against Charlotte, you're able to really turn things around. But the one thing I will say is if they play a lower line of confrontation, we've seen Charlotte FC struggle with that a lot in previous iterations of the Dean Smith game model, particularly last year. I remember a game at Miami last year where they didn't have Lionel Messi and they were down to 10 men. And Miami, after scoring what was a very, very craftily awarded and earned goal at the beginning of the second half with 10 men, they basically parked the bus, the airplane, the canoe, everything in front of it, and played the biggest impenetrable competitive shell that I've seen a 10-man in the 4 years I've been doing this, and Charlotte could not get anything done. So I think maybe that's the reasoning why. And I also just know that in this league, when it comes to those who set out the juice boxes and put them in the places where they're supposed to be, there's a lot that rides on home versus road. And maybe that's what they're thinking about. The one thing that is incredibly intriguing about this 15-game stretch, the first 3 games for Charlotte against teams we haven't seen in the last 2 seasons. We're going to play St. Louis, Galaxy, and Austin. I think the most recently that we've played any of those 3 is Galaxy in 24, because we didn't play St. Louis City after basically that first game at Energizer Park. It's the last and only time we've seen them. We've seen Austin twice, once in 24, and then once or twice in the first 2 years. But we haven't seen either any of these first 3 teams really since that part of it. So I will say there's also been a lot of just, I don't want to say down talk on Charlotte FC from the group at large. And the reason is because they're looking at the incomings and outgoings from Charlotte, and they're looking at the incomings and outgoings from all the other teams. You know, Nashville gets Christian Espinoza. Miami does what they do. Chicago has additions, and other teams feel like they made greater additions than where Charlotte FC did, when Charlotte's best addition, at least from the people at large, is Luca De La Torre. And run it back. It's a very, very hard thing to do in this league. From what people tell me, it's very, very hard to run it back with the same group and feel like you're going to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. But they believe in their product, they believe in their game model, and they believe in the continuity that they've developed in terms of this core. I would put Charlotte FC as a favorite in the opening week. I think Galaxy is going to be a tough sled, but if you can get out of this next 2 games with 4 points coming into a home game against Austin that's winnable, puts you in good position here to do something of consequence in these first 15 games, which, again, I think are going to be very, very different than the way we've seen the season previously, because of just knowing we have that line of demarcation at the World Cup, and you're going to have the window that happens in concert with that. It's going to create basically a primer for what is to come for MLS, because that's going to be our new world order come 27-28, is that you're going to have a little bit of a blitz. You're going to have a long break. You're going to have a winter window, and then you're going to have a sprint to the finish. And it's going to feel very much like that during this different truncated campaign.
And for those that wish, during the season at large, if they wish to listen to you and your coverage in Charlotte FC, how do they do it, sir? Let them know.
We'll be on WFNZ again, 92.7 FM, and a bunch of stations across the Carolinas. Actually, we just picked up a brand new affiliate in Wilmington, ESPN Wilmington, so that's very, very cool. For those of you who might be watching or listening to us down by the ocean front of the North Carolina North State, so that's pretty cool. We're also up in the Triad in the Greensboro area, and also have a couple of stations across Raleigh and also Lynchburg. So very much looking forward to talking to the people again. Once again this year. Anna Whitty is back for her second year alongside me on the coverage as well. WFNZ 92.7 FM on Twitter at Willie P Style, and hopefully we've got 34 good games and a longer run in the postseason.
As always, my friend, great to see you. Can't wait for week number 1 for the sprint, then the cup, then the sprint, and then the sprint, and then back to 27-28. Good to see you, my friend. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, we don't see you guys until the first game after the World Cup, correct? July 20th?
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan to me.
It's going to feel odd not seeing Atlanta for that long of a time.
Crazy and silly. Obviously, you know that you've got the garage door opener. You can come in anytime you wish, and we can break bread and we'll talk about things. Always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, John. Always appreciate it. Have a good year.
I was not backstage. I hit a button, people. All right. That's Will Palaszczuk and Jess Charman. And it turned into a bit of a first match of the season preview kind of thing, which was kind of wild. So Jess and Ian Joy are paired together this year. KCD and Christian Miles are paired together this year. And we will see what those pairings look like. But yes, the demure booth that is Jess Charman and Ian Joy. Nothing like a person from England, and I think Ian's a Scot. I think Ian Joy is a Scot. So yeah, having those two personalities in one booth, yeah, that's Scott. So American-born Scottish. So he was born in San Diego, but Yep, Ian Joy and Jess Charman are going to kick off the season with all caps in Charlotte. So that's going to be on the Apple TV side of things. Remember, there is no season pass anymore, so it's just on Apple TV. And Will and Anna Whitty are going to be on the radio side of things for Charlotte, WFNZ, and that's going to be all season long. So that is that's kind of like a de facto look at match number 1 for the season in Major League Soccer. So right now, I was discussing juice boxes in the interview that we were there with Will Palaszczuk at Willie P Style, by the way, on the Twitters. And the numbers really haven't changed a whole lot since we did that interview. St. Louis City is a plus 110. 90-minute draws a plus 262. Charlotte's a plus 2.25 in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Atlanta United hasn't changed a whole lot. They're just under a plus 300. And FC Cincinnati on the minus side at a minus 122. They're going to be busy tonight. We'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. Hour number 2, we're going to talk about Champions League. We're going to review it. We're going to preview it. We're going to talk about the Triple C. We're going to review it. We have highlights and sound from last night. Dominant performance from LAFC. And it is, once again, a reinforcement that when it comes to juice boxes and actual game ideas, don't pay attention to a damn word I say. Happened last night at San Pedro Sula in Honduras with Real España and LAFC, and Atletico Ottawa and Nashville was last night as well. Speaking of which, we're going to have Lucas Panzica dropping by. He's going to bat leadoff tomorrow, and we're going to get the Nashville SC side of things before we find out what the latest is with the Atlanta Amputee Soccer. That's coming up at 9:30, and then the Power Hour with Nino and Nico. That is at 10 and 10:30. That's tomorrow. So that is the show tomorrow. Friday is the show of chaos, and we might go long tomorrow because we might have a special guest that we have to catch up with because he's busy right now, like literally, like in this time slot, busy. So we're efforting an interview with a particular special guest as a part of our MLSE preview, and it's also calendar timely outside of Major League Soccer. So we're efforting this interview, and we're probably going to end up going long tomorrow, and that might be in the beginning of the third hour and just added time that we will catch up with this special guest and air that tomorrow. Friday, remember, Friday's the show of chaos. Thanks to our friends at MLS Soccer. I don't know who's coming. I might know tomorrow. I might not. So we'll find out what it looks like. This is the show that we had for MLS Cup and for Decision Day. We are now expanding it to beginning of the regular season. So reached out to our friends at MLS Soccer, and I was like, hey, yo, we'd like to do it again. They're like, okay, let's do it. So I don't know who's going to be on the show Friday. I don't. I literally do not have an idea. That is being orchestrated by powers that are higher than me, and we will find out as we go. But as you know, when it comes to the show of chaos, when it comes to large events inside Major League Soccer, there's one parameter that has to be adhered to, that the person who is in discussing their match and the season in general has to have a question for the person coming in before they can leave. That's the one condition for these guests as they come in and discuss Major League Soccer as we get ready for the 2026 season kickoff here. And it's just around the corner. Thinking that this is Wall Pass Wednesday, and we're going to talk about it today, talk about it tomorrow, talk about it on Friday, and kick off on Saturday with Jess and Ian Joy in St. Louis. I need Jess to pick me up a pink scarf. And we have sent Jess a lot of stuff having to do with the food, about the history, about that area where Energizer is. And there's a lot to pay attention to there. And so, and if she gets to get her picture made with the arch, I think that'll be really cool. And that better be posted to social. So that has been our number 1. Just to give you a quick rundown, let's see if things have changed in the juice boxes. And like I said, we'll keep an eye on it for the remainder of the week. So we mentioned all caps in Charlotte. We mentioned FC Cincinnati, Atlanta United. DC United and Philly really hasn't changed. Philly at a plus 119. DC's at a plus 211. Purple teams on the minus side. That one's kind of shifted a little bit toward the plus. They're at a minus 105 hosting Red Bulls, who are a plus 272. Vancouver gets the weird 740 start. Minus 154 hosting RSL, who's a plus 375. Remember these numbers. We'll get back over them tomorrow and on Friday. Austin hosting Minnesota United at Q2. No timetable on Hamas yet. They're a plus 195. Austin's a plus 135. FCD hosting Toronto at a plus 122. Toronto north of plus 200, almost a plus 205. Houston Dynamo, Chicago Fire. That's where KCD is going to be. Nothing changed there. Houston is a plus 148. The Fire is a plus 164. Nashville, coming off of last night, still on the minus side, pretty heavy. I think this has gone up a little bit. They're a minus 132 hosting the Revs, who are a plus 318. Then the matchup from the Mausoleum out in Los Angeles. Saturday Night Soccer, the Saturday showcase with the friends at Walmart. And that is with the number one broadcast crew. And Andrew Wiebe is going to be on the sidelines on Saturdays this year. It's going to be Jillian Sakovitz, and it will be on an English and Spanish with a sideline representation in both languages for Apple on Sunday nights. LAFC is a plus 108 hosting Messi and friends. That number's come down a little bit. No word yet on Messi's health, and will he be available for Fort Lauderdale as they head all the way over to LA. Then Portland hosting Crew. They're a plus 188. Crew favorite at a plus 129. San Diego's still a large favorite. See if Montreal's number's gotten larger. They're at a plus 500. San Diego's at a minus 213. Quakes are favored, and that number's kind of come closer to the edge. Minus 111 hosting Sporting at a plus 250. Sunday, 7 o'clock, which is probably 7. Well, if it's across other networks, then it'll be longer than 7:10. LAG favored at home, plus 147 hosting NYC to plus 162. Then the late game, Seattle and Colorado. Seattle big favorite, minus 208, and Colorado's a plus 487. So that's your juice box update as we go into the midweek here and lay it all out for you. Okay, let me say hi to everybody who's in this morning. Morning, Alex. Morning, Ricky. Morning, David. And morning, Will. And morning, Will B. And then morning, Will from Huntsville. And Will asked if we've talked about Lisbon yet. No, that is for hour number 2. So hang on to that in a second. Morning, Abby and David. Yes, we're doing high school tonight. We're actually doing high school at noon. And then we're doing high school tonight. Pius and Brookwood out at Brookwood Community Stadium. That is at 5:30 and 7:30. Jason and Maddie will have the calls on both of those. I'll be out there for pregame and halftime. And that will be there for Wednesday. Friday, we're going to be for the one match. Maddie and I are going to be at Johnson Gainesville. Dalton and Johnson Gainesville. We're doing that one because we're going to leave like right after the show is over at noon and head north. We got to get there because parking is at a premium. People are going to be parking at a great distance inside the parking lots of Johnson Gainesville High School. And we're going to the Castle for Dalton and Johnson Gainesville. It is non-region, it is boys, and it's going to be insane for the environment. Cannot wait for this one. And that's going to be on Friday. Just a single game on Friday. Doubleheader today, 5:30 and 7:30 on the network. Pius at Brookwood Community Stadium, the Dave Hunter Athletic Complex. That'll be with us. That'll be with you on the network. And that is soccerdownhere.net/listen. And you'll see the different channels that pop up. SDH 1 will be in use with the match, and you'll see like a red live flashing banner button kind of thing in the upper right-hand corner. When we have, like we did at Creek Cup, when we have SDH 1 and 2 going at the same time, just kind of keep an eye on whichever channel you're looking for your match. And then it'll be, once again, those live buttons will be up and running, and they'll be like, they'll be shiny and they'll be going on and off. Just keep an eye on the live channel so you can go to the live game that you're looking for when it comes to the network. And the games will be archived. Usually they're archived about a year for an entire season to kind of listen to, whether it's our high school or the twos or what have you. Those matches are going to be up there for a while, and people have asked, especially after what happened with Creek Cup. So matches are archived for about a year. Same thing. Go to soccerdownhere.net/listen, and you can go into that particular channel, and you can scroll down, you can find the match, and then you can play it out there. So that is Wednesday game. games. That is Friday game. Noon, it is the Red Clay Soccer Report. After we're done here, we come back at noon, and we're going to look at the high school game through the lens of GMC Prep, through the lens of Jeff Davis, and through the lens of Kelly Bowler at Johns Creek. So we're going to get kind of a Creek Cup postmortem. That's going to be at noon on the network on the Red Clay Soccer Report. Red Clay Wednesdays, where we break everything down in the noon hour, kind of look at everything and the polling and all of that and get you ready for matchups and stuff. By the way, next week, if you're in South Georgia, if you have a chance, Wintersville is next Tuesday. The Wintersville Classic soccer style, Lowndes and Valdosta, is next Tuesday. And I warned the coaches, I warned Cody Case, our friend from down there. I said, Cody, I sent him a note, and I said, I'm going to try to have all 4 of you on next week, on next Wednesday's lunch. So we are efforting a Wintersville Classic Red Clay Wednesday next week. So this week, GMC Prep, Jeff Davis, and Johns Creek on the boys' side. Next week, we're going to try and see if we can piece together the Wintersville Classic for the Red Clay Wednesday. So that's the rundown. That's the rundown for this week and next week when it comes to Red Clay Wednesdays on the network. Okay, it is hour number 2. And I want to, since I really didn't get to do opening kickoff, I want to do opening kickoff. And I do want to talk about what happened in Lisbon. We'll get into Champions League. We'll get into all of that because there have been some developments this morning. We'll get into that. So quickly, opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. We start your day with the most important stories in the game, the right way to start your morning. Black Pitch Coffee, part of the SDH community, showing up at events all over Atlanta. Try their home blend made with beans from Brazil and Guatemala. Heavy-bodied with notes of walnut and semi-sweet chocolate, a rich world-class finish. Opening kickoff powered by our friends at Black Pitch Coffee and blackpitchcoffee.com. Did you know somebody had a show as a part of his continuing relationship with Atlanta United? Brad Gazan has a show. Be very afraid. Here's your teaser. And you can go to Atlanta United on their social medias. It's the Hoff with Goose, and they tell us about our first guest.
And now we welcome in our first guest ever on the Guzan Show. None other than Mr. Kevin Egan himself. Kev,
What's the crack?
welcome to the show. Bud.
Get in there, Kev. Great to have you.
Well, this is unbelievable. You've
Hey.
got your own show.
Hey.
Joe, this is weird for you and I.
This is strange waters. If this thing steers itself sideways, it might either be his fault or mine, but
Yeah.
definitely not yours.
I know.
But thank you so much for
I just
coming
don't want
on,
to be
man.
like a Franco Escobar. I don't want to get in his way. You know?
Kev, I promise I'm not going to send you to the hospital.
Okay.
No, we're excited to have you, man. And listen, this is new territory for me. I know you're used to being in this chair. I've taken a page out of your book. What advice you got for me?
And
dude?
Joe's too. He's a pro. This guy. I love
mean,
Joe's work.
honestly. So if what you're saying, if this thing goes sideways, that's
It's
definitely
on
my
you.
fault. Yeah,
It's on you.
100%.
No pressure, no pressure.
I think be yourself, Brad. Have fun along the way. This man is so popular in the game of soccer here in the US and abroad. So lean into it. Get your contacts on. I want to see some old Villa heads on here too.
Hey, love that. Love that.
And I can't wait to see what the dossier looks like for the guests that Brad's going to bring in. First guest on the Brad Gazan show, on the Guzan show, or the Guzan show on Atlanta United and all their social media platforms. It is Kevin Egan. So that's going to be a fun one. So teases out, episodes out. You've been warned. Okay, let's get into Champions League and break down what happened yesterday. And we'll get into the results. Then we'll get into the news. And we'll get into the updates of everything that has gone on since yesterday. So yesterday, you had a couple of surprises, and it was a long day for some folks. So it was Dortmund taking it fairly easily against Atalanta 2-0, and yes, I'm building. Monaco and PSG. PSG was a minus 233, and they had to have a late goal to win 3-2. Monaco was up 2-0. PSG came back, and then they had to score later than late. Desiree Doué, 3-2. Monaco going in was a plus 560. They had a 2-0 lead. Galatasaray and Juve. This one I actually got right, kind of. If you went with my first instinct to keep an eye on Galatasaray, considering everything that Juve had happened last weekend and what they've got going on this weekend, this was that sandwich game. And obviously, when you have red cards and you go down to 10, game can get out of control. But Galatasaray in a back-and-forth game ends up winning that one 5-2 at a plus 218. So Galatasaray wins 5-2. And I'm checking the totals really quickly when it comes to juice boxes. So if you had 6.5 as your total, you could have gotten that at a plus 2,200. 5.5 was a plus 933 in the composite. 6.5, you had 2 juice box purveyors actually take that as a total. 6.5, the over under at 6.5 was a plus 2,200. So you could have needed an extra storage locker for all of your juice boxes if you had taken that 2,200 at 6.5 and gone over. Then we get into the other 3 o'clock matchup. Real Madrid over Benfica by the score of 1-0. We figured that Benfica was going to make it as difficult as humanly possible for Real Madrid to function offensively, and they did for the most part. Then you end up with an absolute golazo from Vinny Jr., and the juice boxes had Real Madrid on the plus side at a plus 120, which is, kind of understandable, and that's fine. So then from there, to say all hell broke loose might be kind of insulting to the underworld. So you have the celebration. Objects are thrown from the stands. A. Then you have Benfica players confronting Vinicius Jr. just over the celebration. And then you have Gianluca Prestiani doing one of these. For those of you who are just listening, I have taken my sweatshirt and I have covered my nose and my mouth. Then he appeared to say, he covers his mouth with his shirt and appeared to say something that just changed the absolute tenor of the evening. Vinicius goes to the center ref, the man in the middle, Francois Letexier, to complain. Letexier does the X. And so that is the that gesture, and that is the protocol that was introduced to signal an allegation of racist abuse. And this is how Jason broke it down this morning on Morning Espresso. And if you have not subscribed to Morning Espresso, you can do so. And go to soccerdownhere.net. You can subscribe. It's on Beehive as well. So here's the breakdown. Kylian Mbappe later alleges that Prestiani called Vinicius, quote, and I'm not even going to say it. Actually, I am. Call him a monkey multiple times, saying he heard it clearly. Cameras caught Mbappe confronting him directly in the pitch. Tchouaméni echoed the allegation. Trent Alexander-Arnold called it a disgrace to football, end quote. Prestiani denied the accusation, saying Vinicius misunderstood, in quotation marks, what was said. UEFA will now review the referee's report to decide whether disciplinary proceedings follow. Then Mbappe, again after the match, quote, "This is the Champions League and we have to set an example for all the children watching us at home." He insisted Prestiani, quote, "doesn't deserve to play in the competition anymore." And on social media, Mbappe defended not just his teammate, but his freedom, quote, "Keep dancing, Vinny, and please never stop. They'll never tell us what to do or not to do." Then from there, Benfica's official social media account on the 280 on X claimed that Madrid players could not have heard what they had heard. They said they heard, citing the distance shown in broadcast images, even though the footage shows the players were pretty close together. Prestiani, in his own statement carried widely in Brazil, insisted he, quote, had never been racist, lamented threats he said followed in the aftermath. For Vinicius, the pain was depressingly familiar, another moment where the burden shifts immediately onto the player reporting the abuse. Jose Mourinho questioned why Vinicius did not celebrate like Eusebio. Then he says, Vinicius says one thing and Prestiani says another. and Mourinho's response have been universally panned. And Thierry Henry, this is the one that has stuck with me. Thierry Henry's response. Quote, at times you feel lonely because it's going to be your word against his word. Henry pointed to the detail everyone saw, Prestiani covering his mouth, challenging Prestiani. Quote, let's see how big of a man he is. Tell us what you said. That is what stuck with me the most with what Thierry Henry said in all of this. Prestiani, he challenges Prestiani in the open. Tell us what you said. And if you go by what Prestiani told the assembled media and reporters, once again, that was carried in South America, you take what Prestiani has said, you take what Henry has suggested. Will Prestiani take Thierry Henry up on that idea? Mikhail Silvestre, a member of FIFA's Players Committee, said discussions began immediately about whether football should start punishing players who deliberately cover their mouths in order to hide offensive remarks. Vinicius on social media, racists are above all cowards. UEFA is going to review the referee report. FIFA Players Committee is already discussing new punishments. This morning, to add to everything, UEFA, obviously, they're going to investigate, and we're waiting for the wire copy to come and be, wire copy to be nice and cooperative here. But hang on just a second. So UEFA, from our buddy Ben Jacobs, UEFA Ethics and Disciplinary Inspector has been appointed to investigate allegations of discriminatory behavior from Benfica's Gianluca Prestiani toward Vinicius Jr. during the Champions League knockout, the Champions League knockout playoff on Tuesday. So that is something of the short version. Benfica issued the official statement following the proceedings, reaffirmed in a clear and unequivocal manner, Benfica, their historical commitment to the values of equality, respect, and inclusion. Benfica's board has expressed its unconditional support for Prestiani. Club states it fully believes in the version of its player, highlighting that his behavior has always been exemplary and respectful towards opponents and institutions. For Benfica, from our friends at One Football, the player is being the victim of an unjust defamation campaign. Club reiterates it'll remain firm in defending its identity and that of its professionals. With this response, the Eagles team hopes that UEFA's investigation will be conducted rigorously to protect the integrity of those involved and the values of the sport. UEFA has confirmed that the official reports of the matches played in the last round are under review. The international body has indicated that as soon as the facts are formally reported, relevant procedures will be initiated. They've also clarified that any disciplinary sanction that may arise from this process will be publicly communicated through their official channels. So that is One Football's report. Yeah, and Ricky, we will discuss that. That came out a handful of minutes ago. So we do have breaking news involving Atlanta United as well. Let me check. I'm just going to check other sources so we can see if there's any other pieces of information that we might be missing that have been attached to all of this. Okay, so we mentioned the ethics and disciplinary inspector. And the game was paused for 10 minutes. The 20-year-old forward Prestiani faces a potential 10-match ban if found guilty of racial abuse in UEFA's disciplinary code. Prestiani denies. Like I said, and I'm scanning a couple of different sources here. Sources told ESPN that Vinicius is very grateful for the support he's received from his club and teammates, particularly Mbappé, who was one of the first Madrid players to come to his defense. The French star was captured shortly after the alleged episode by Spanish TV Movie Star Plus cameras confronting Prestiani on the pitch. Former Benfica captain Luis Sao among those criticized the Portuguese team's stance. And the return leg is on February 25th. And odds are in that match, right now, you will not have Jose Mourinho either because he was red carded late in the match on a separate incident. And we will see what the latest is there. But yes, it was it was a long afternoon. It was a great goal, and it was in what should have been a moment to celebrate a game that was in the knockouts, in the Champions League for a reason. You have that moment from Vinicius Jr., and then it is completely and totally just pushed to the side. I'm not even going to say overshadowed. It was pushed to the side. That moment, that goal that made it 1-0, the deciding goal in this first leg, with everything else that followed. The Benfica fans that decided that they wanted to throw their drinks and containers onto the field, inexcusable. And the challenge of Prestiani, I thought, was from Thierry Henry. I thought that was brilliant. If you have something to say it. You want to defend yourself, defend yourself. Benfica instantly, obviously, defended their player and went to measuring lengths to do so. So we'll see what happens. Jose Mourinho, not as at this moment, not anticipated to be in that second leg because he had a separate nutty that happened. And so that gets us to looking at today, even though I know that a majority of the conversation is going to be about what happened yesterday. And I imagine also that Nino Torres is probably going to want to talk about it tomorrow. So we'll put a bookmark in it today. I know that Nino's going to have some things that he'll say, considering all of his time that has been to that has been covering Portuguese football. So obviously Nino is going to get fired up about it. It's not. I'm not even going to say Nino Damas because it's not meant to be any kind of humor attached to it. And you have, the fans I have issues with, thinking that once again, just because you buy a ticket, and I'm not going to play the Roy Kent thing because I'm not in the mood. Just because you buy a ticket to get you into a venue to watch an event does not give you permission to act like an ass and throw things onto the field. I don't know what protocol is going to be filed. Is Benfica even going to look at those folks? Are they going to look at their CCTV cameras inside the venue and go, yep, you, and you? Considering what we've seen so far, I highly doubt it. We'll see. Benfica's focused on defending their player. Coach is hell-bent on defending their player and defending the club. In normal moments, I do understand that, yes, as a coach and as a club, you have to defend your player. There's a conjunction there. Fill that in. So that's where we are. UEFA is putting together a committee for an investigation. We'll see how long it takes. Is this going to be in the express lane, or are they going to take their time? Ethics and disciplinary inspector has been appointed. We don't know who it is inside the UEFA walls. We don't know who that is yet. So a 10-minute pause when you put up the X. And so you're looking at a 10-match ban if found guilty of racial abuse. But we have seen where Benfica is planting their strategy and their return on the event. So we'll just see what happens there. So, yeah, look, there's 4 matches to talk about today. We'll get into the juice boxes, but I can guarantee you that most of the conversation is going to be about what happened yesterday and taking away from a great moment in a match that was what we look at when it comes to Champions League. Yeah, and Ricky, yes, you're spot on. Yeah, it's Yeah, it's and I'm biting my tongue on a lot of this stuff. I really am, because we still I'm waiting for I'm waiting for the investigation to come out with what they come out with. What was reported yesterday and told by the Real Madrid players, Vinicius, Mbappe. Yeah. So I'm just going to bite my head and shake my tongue for the time being. All right. News from Atlanta United. We got to get into that. So before we get into CONCACAF, before we get into juice boxes, actually tell you what. Let me do the juice boxes for today first. Let's do that. So today, here's what you have. 12:45, because it is halfway around the world. I have to figure out where. I always get confused which republic it's in. Azerbaijan. Okay, so in the Karabakh region in Azerbaijan, Karabakh Football Club, otherwise known as Karabakh, they have their activity today against Newcastle. Once again, first leg in Azerbaijan. So Newcastle gets to go from England to Azerbaijan in the midweek and back. Newcastle prohibited favorite at a minus 256 on the turf surface there at Karabakh. Karabakh's a plus 614. Your 3 o'clocks. Olympiacos, slightly favored against Bayer Leverkusen at a plus 148. Bayer Leverkusen a plus 194. Atletico de Madrid, who got thumped by Rayo Vallecano on the weekend. I think they're going to be mad going to Club Brugge. How do they respond at a minus 103? Club Brugge a plus 277. And Inter, minus 145, hosting Bodo Glimt. North of the Arctic Circle, I'm going draw at a plus 323. Bodo Glimt to win is a plus 368. So those are your numbers when it comes to Champions League. And Paramount Plus has them all. And you got the 3 at 3 o'clock and the one at 12:45. So that's your rundown of all of that today. Now, into Atlanta United and into CONCACAF and the Triple C. So because we have Atlanta United news, you know what that means. We have to go in a certain direction. And here that certain direction is. And so that means, come on, seriously, you're going to do this to me? Wow. Okay. Nothing like locking up a computer. Man. Nothing like locking up a computer trying to find some information. That's fantastic. That's a Monday, or it's a Wednesday. It's acting like a Monday. Anyway, get this. This was not on the bingo card. Sergio Santos is now in with Atlanta United. Did not have that one. And so Sergio Santos now is attached to Atlanta United. And for those of you that may not remember the history, Brazilian forward, 7 years of MLS experience, joining on a free 28 plus 14 and 169 regular season and playoff matches. Chris Henderson, quote, Sergio's been a productive forward in our league for the past 7 seasons. We'll add competition to our group of attackers. He's going to bring MLS experience, quality, and a winning mindset to our team. We look forward to welcoming him to the club. Played in Philly, played with DC, played with the played with Philly, played with Cincinnati, played with the Dynamo. 22-13 and 89 appearances, all comps with Philly. Helped them win the Supporters Shield in 2020. 10 plus 10 and 102 with Cincinnati. Supporters Shield in 23. Belo Horizonte, Brazil native, previously for Audax Italiano, 26 and 11 and 86 appearances from 14 to 18. On a supplemental, spots 21 through 30, 31-year-old once again, and it is a 1+1. Sergio Santos for the 26th season option through December 31st to 27. So that makes him the 6th forward as a part of the roster, 5th one that will be in and around practice at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training facility, because once again, remember, Ashton Gordon is on loan with Chattanooga FC for the calendar year. And if you were looking for the numbers that are attached to a salary figure, then we'll go to Transfermarkt, Ricky, and we'll check it out real quick. But I wanted to look at the salary guide and find out what Sergio Santos was making Okay, so Sergio Santos positioned according to the PA as a center forward. Base of 825, guaranteed comp 940. So that's what his salary was last year when he was in Houston. All right, so let's take a peek at Transfermarkt, and we'll get the numbers of Sergio Santos in his career. Seriously? So Sergio Santos, by the numbers, coming over from without Club FC. Looking at the numbers from Santos, main position's a center forward. Has played left wing and has played a second striker. So looking at his statistics, all comps, but primarily a center forward. So you would be lining up, my guess would be lining up Fafa as a winger that could play centrally and Sergio Santos as a center forward who could play out on the wing. Center forward has been his position in 140 of the 163 matches that he has played as a professional. 140 appearances as a center forward, 38 and 18. Like I said, he has played left wing. He did that in an extra 10% of the time. And then he's played on the right, played a second striker, played attacking midfielder. But a majority of his time has been center forward. So that is the rundown on Sergio Santos. Primarily a center forward. So keep an eye on that. But Sergio Santos coming in, obviously we don't know what the price tag was, but his price tag was higher than Jamal Tiare's. And with Sergio Santos, you now have him sliding in behind Latte Lot, and you have Fafa Pico out on the wing. At least it's looking that way. So we'll see what it looks like. But Sergio Santos, Houston, Cincy, Philly, now in Atlanta with a deal that's a 1+1. So Sergio Santos now part of the fold, and looking forward to how it all lays out for Sergio Santos as a part of Atlanta United. So keep an eye out for that. So good stuff with Atlanta United, continuing to add folks as we get closer and closer to the season. And once again, no word on the other players that we were talking about. Galarza Fonda, no update that I can think of. We'll go ahead and we'll do our due diligence, and obviously keep an eye on Wallace Jan going into the summer. But so if we were to look for any kind of an update on Matias Galarza Fonda, would there be one? Going to latest and seeing if once again you're looking at Galarza Fonda, and there's pictures. And let's see, from the 16th. And let's see, estimates once again. We got into that discussion yesterday where he was making $563 a year at River Plate and being referred to as the Paraguayan Modric. But nothing as of 2 days ago since then where River had considered the offer, loan offer option to buy for Matias Galarza Fonda. Nothing since that. So that would have been for the midfielder Matias Galarza Fonda. No update there with him. Keep an eye on Wallace Jan. Put a bookmark in that for the summer. So we'll find out what the deal is there with all of those. But that's your update of updates when it comes to all of those. All right, CONCACAF Champions Cup, the Triple C. It was once again a reinforcement that most of the time I don't know what the heck it is I'm talking about. I'm just saying. It's one of those where you're like, this one kind of sits there and it looks almost too easy to sit there and go, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Turned out it wasn't. We'll start from the early part of the evening last night, and it was Nashville and Atletico Ottawa, and they were playing in Hamilton, Ontario. I should check with our friends at One Football and One Soccer and find out why that specifically was. And see if we can do that here while we're workshopping what happened. We actually have 3 matches tonight that we'll get into in a sec. But results from yesterday. Results in the CONCACAF Champions Cup from yesterday. Nashville, it took a while at a -182. Playing in Hamilton, Ontario, a team from Ottawa. So here's your highlights of that match, and they all happened late. Atletico Ottawa was hovering, and they were really hovering until the latter stages of the second half, till about 30 to go. Here's your highlights, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF and FS2.
Bauer doesn't have a left foot to talk about. Cochran. Rubens Pacias. Rubens Pacias! He gives Nashville SC the first goal of 2026. And they open their account in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Innocent has been beaten. Atletico Ottawa's debut has been dampened. He's done it 17 times last season in the USL Championship. 45 seconds remaining. Maktar, excellent shimmy. Espinoza, he's onside. To Surridge. 2-0. It is Ife gets his first tonight in new colors of Nashville SC. In a week's time.
2-0 your final. Like I said, it took a while, but Nashville FC ended up getting the 2-0 win, and the home leg in this. The first round tie in Hamilton is because of renovations at TD Place in Ottawa. So that's why they moved it to Hamilton. And so now Atleti will head to Nashville next week for the second leg, trying to turn things around, and they're going to have to do it with a 2-goal deficit. 100 days after winning North Star Cup, fielded a starting 11, 5 starters from the CPL final that included Johnny Vial. Johnny Vial getting a start for Atletico Ottawa, so that reminds me that we probably should track them down and find out what the latest is with Johnny Vial up in Ottawa. Garrison Innocent made their debuts up front and in goal. Ralph Corey got his first start at center forward at the age of 18. And so Nashville rotated. 6 of their 11 had fewer than 10 matches of MLS experience. Alex Muil, Brian Acosta, Jack Mayer, and the first 45, according to our friends at One Soccer, it was sluggish, and once again, no real surprise. So then you end up with Rubens Pacias, who actually has a history in that building. He's the former striker for Forge. First team debut for Nashville. 19th career goal at Hamilton Stadium made it 1-0. BJ Callahan, then in the final 20 minutes, decides that he wants to bring in Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge. Diego Mejia did the same for Atleti, bringing in Emiliano Garcia, Erling Mikkelboost, and Cameron Habibullah. And it was a new-look front three. They had one chance late, and it was directed on frame, and it was inadvertently blocked by a teammate. So your lineups, Innocent, Dehaney Walker, Abatna, Kozlowski, Antonoro, Castro, Aparicio, Coulange, Balou Tabla, who we remember from his time with CF Montreal, Johnny Vial, who got subbed out after 67, and the 18-year-old Curry. For Nashville, it was Schweiky, Bauer, Williams, Marr, Acosta, Jack Mayer. Acosta subbed Patrick Yazbek in the 64th. Corcoran, Knight, Andy Nahar comes in the 64th. Muil, Kassem, Espinosa comes in the 64th. Rubens Pacias, who was subbed for Hani Mukhtar for the final 15, and Warren Madrigal, who was subbed in the final 10 by Sam Surridge. So it was a goal in the 66th from Pacias, goal at 90 plus 5 from Sam Surridge, 2-0, and it's going to be on Tuesday where you're going to have the second leg at Geodis. And so that's the rundown of that particular match. So after the match, that meant mix zone, and that meant Alex Muil got to answer some questions, once again, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF.
Yeah, I think for us, first game of the season, we want to start off with a good result, able to keep the clean sheet and get a couple goals away. This is a tough opposition. They did really well. They asked a lot of questions, so, we're going to have to see them again in a week at home and come out strong, but good to start with a win.
You've got to compete on multiple fronts this season. Was it good to see some of the depth step up and Woobens get his goal?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really deep team. We have players in every position who are competing, fighting for time. So I think with this many games, it actually really plays to our strength, and guys get opportunities to show their quality.
How do you now turn around quickly to be ready for MLS on the weekend?
That's right, yeah. We got a home opener on Saturday against New England, so for us it's going to be about getting our bodies right, getting ready for the next challenge, and just attacking that one the same way we attacked this one.
Alex Muil after the match and the 2-0 win for Nashville SC, knocking off Atletico Ottawa in leg number 1 of their matchup on the right-hand side of the bracket. Other matchup late, and this was the one where I was confident. Boy, was I confident. This is why I should not be confident, and I should not be trusted when it comes to juice boxes in these instances. I mean, I figured LAFC would win, might be close, at least early. And it was close when the whistle blew. But then after that, it got progressively worse. And this is why you don't trust me when it comes to picking games. Here's your highlights. LAFC and Real España from San Pedro Sula in Honduras, courtesy of our friends at CONCACAF and FS2.
And we are rolling in Honduras in Valencia down this right side. David Martinez trying to step onto it. That tumbles over. It's a penalty for LAFC inside the opening minute. Leg 1, round 1. Bouanga versus Lopez, and Denis Bouanga scores. A big away goal to kickstart their continental quest. LAFC couldn't have started better in Honduras. Sun goes on though, and then slides it through, and Martinez scores. LAFC, 2 goals to the good, 10 minutes in leg 1. That's such a wonderful ball through, though, and another great one by Martinez, who's been involved in both their first 2 goals, and he finishes this one off, sweeping it in with that left foot gorgeously. Hunted down by the end line by Bouanga. Dancing further, goes over, and another penalty
Ortiz
for
has
LAFC.
been summoned to the monitor.
Lead VAR, Diana Perez of Mexico. Here's the angle that she is showing him. Sticks with his call, but let's see. After VAR review, it is still a penalty. And that's exactly the case. Up against Luis Lopez. Sun scores. And the sun shining already for LAFC.
That was only half of them. 3 goals on the board in the first 23 minutes, and LAFC was rolling. The end of the night, Denis Bouanga had a hattie. PK in the 3rd, 24th in the 71st. David Martinez scores in the 11th. 2 PKs for LAFC on the night. You heard 2 of them. Yeonmin Son in the 22nd. So literally, you had 4 goals on the board through 24 minutes. It was over. Timothy Tillman scores in the 39th. So 4 different goal scorers. Denis Bouanga gets a hattie. Martinez, Yeonmin Son, and Timothy Tillman. 6-1 the final. Real España finally getting on the board in the 51st minute when it was already 5-0. Starting lineup for LAFC, just to kind of keep it in mind as they come back to LA to take on Messi and friends on the weekend on Saturday. It was Hugo Lloris, back 4, Segura, Tafari, Ryan Porteous, and Sergi Palencia. Mark Delgado, Tillman, and Timothy Tillman and Steven Eustachio getting some minutes in his first action with LAFC. Then up front, Denis Bouanga, Yeonmin Son, and David Martinez. So that's pretty stout. And you end up with a 6-1 win as they come back to LAFC next week. Just to give you an idea on the stats of the match. 14 shots to 12, which is kind of staggering when you think about it. 8 shots on target compared to 3. 5 block shots compared to 4. Total passes, legitimately, and once again, most of this was when LAFC had an insurmountable lead. But they only had 37 more total passes than Real España. Passing accuracy at 88% compared to 87.4. 5 corners compared to 4. 4 crosses for Real España of the 5. 9 offside, 5 LAFC. 2 saves for Lloris, 2 for Luis Lopez. 5 clearances compared to 4. 12 fouls compared to 12. 24 fouls called, even Steven. And by the end of it all, it was 6-1. 8 shots on target for LAFC compared to 3 for Real España. And that one's done. So round 1 goes to LAFC over Real España. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, it's going to be a hot crowd. It was. And it was a long night for the home fans. Denny Bouanga, after the match, got to break it all down in the mix zone, and he was the man of the match, obviously, with the hat trick. Here's Denny Bouanga, courtesy of our friends once again at CONCACAF.
The feeling is super cool because we need this victory for preparing the game after, and we come here in Honduras for the win, and job is done.
How do you feel with this hat trick starting this competition?
The feeling is so good. I'm very happy to score 3. My teammate helped me for this hat trick, but I say thank you for the fight with coming, and thank you for my team for that.
Denny Bouanga after the match, hat trick, man of the match, 1 from the spot, 6-1. LAFC taking care of business in their opening round first leg against Real España. That gets us to today, and it's a triple header in the Triple C, and it's 6, 8, and 10. So, it is inexcusable for you not to try and find a monitor, or at least have it as a part of your streaming experience. So 6, 8, and 10 Eastern time. Defense Force and Philadelphia Union. Philadelphia Union a -256 on the road. Defense Force a +581. 8 o'clock, Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati goes to take on Universidad O&M. They're -476. Universidad is at +1162. Then your late one at 10 o'clock, Vancouver at Cartagines. Vancouver favored at a -147. Draws a +275. Cartagines is a +363. So let's go to school here a little bit. So let's find out, and this is kind of soccer over there-ish, kind of, if you think about it. So Defense Force in the early match, based in Trinidad and Tobago. Chaguaramas, Trinidad and Tobago, currently playing in the TT Premier Football League. They play their home games at Hazley Crawford Stadium in Mucurapo, Trinidad. They are known as the Teteron Boys. Founded in 1974, 52 years ago. 27,000-seat stadium. Manager is Marvin Gordon. Most successful football club in Trinidad and Tobago. 20 national championships, 15 titles in 22 years in the National League from 74 to 95. 2 titles in the Semi-Pro League from 96 to 98. 3 championships since Trinidad and Tobago's league became professional in 1999. Also, the only team from Trinidad and Tobago to have ever won the Champions Cup, winning titles in 1978, 1985. 1985, they got the treble, winning National League, FA Trophy, and the Triple C. Only one of 3 teams in CONCACAF to have achieved the feat, along with Cruz Azul and Monterrey, and the only club, obviously, outside of Mexico. This was the last time a Caribbean club won the Champions Cup. Club is composed of Trinidad and Tobago's protective forces. They're named Defense Force FC. Usually included are officers, soldiers, and sailors from the Trinidad and Tobago Army and Coast Guard. So there is a Defense Force link to Defense Force FC. But literally, you have Army and Coast Guard members from the Trinidad and Tobago playing for Defense Force. And if you were to go and try and find bios on the players on the roster, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14, 28. So there, of the 30 players that are on the current recognized roster, you probably can only get bios of 10. One of them being Kevin Molino, who is also the captain. And you might remember Kevin Molino from his time both at Orlando City in USL and with Minnesota United and Columbus Crew. Since his time at Defense Force, he's played 7 matches and has 10 goals. 36 goals and 121 appearances for the Purple Team from 11 to 16. 21 goals and 67 appearances from 17 to 20, went to Crew from 21 to 23, and has been with Defense Force since 24. So probably the most known name for Defense Force. And I don't know if Kevin Molino now is a part of the Trinidad and Tobago Army or Coast Guard, but he is the most recognizable name probably for Defense Force going into tonight and this matchup, where no real surprise, they are a decided underdog in the first match tonight as they're going up against Philadelphia Union. Universidad O&M. Like I said, I guess we're kind of treating this with the soccer over there treatment. Universidad O&M. And I have to do the ampersand, I think. O&M FC. So Universidad O&M. Dominican Republic. And they play in the LDF, the Liga Dominicana de Futbol. And do we actually have an overview? Okay, so we have an overview from the Dominican Republic that has virtually no information. So in the Caribbean Cup, they finished second to Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is also there on the left-hand side of the bracket, and Universidad O&M is on the right-hand side of the bracket. Mount Pleasant's kind of waiting to see what happens with everyone else. And we get to find out. Okay, so O&M FC technically is the name of the club. Saber Pensar Trabajar. And their nickname is, obviously, La Universidad, the university. Based in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, they represent the Universidad Organización y Método. Thus, O&M. University Organization and Method College. Organization and Method College, or O&M College. Founded in 1966. Club participates in the LDF, first university to penetrate professional Dominican sports. Playing at Estadio Olímpico Félix Sánchez, capacity of 27,000. Ronald Batista is the manager, finished 5th in the league in 2025. Established in 1974, 52 years ago. But just to let you know about O&M College. University in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, founded 1966. Campuses in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other cities. And they are a private institution. And the logo and slogan is kind of like the football club. And the logo here. So let's do this. Hang on just a second. Let me share. I'm going to show you what we're looking at here to look up O&M. To let you know about O&M in the Dominican Republic, this is their website. And we're going to talk about the logo and the slogan. It's kind of the logo for the football team at O&M FC is kind of like is kind of like the page for the school in and of itself. But when you look at O&M, education for development is their phrase. Clear example of mission and profound understanding of the vital importance of education in the development of nations. Central circle breaking the tangent, signifying the only way to break the cycle of underdevelopment is through education. Knowledge, thinking, and working is the motto. Motto was the word I was trying to figure out. So motto of O&M. And so O&M, Universidad Dominicana O&M. Knowledge, thinking, working. Basic orientation of the Omeyano student. They must be instructed to know how to think correctly and scientifically, and that all these mental actions must be put into practice through productive, diligent, serious, and honest work in the activities that each graduate is assigned. And so there is a work that they have been assigned tonight at O&M FC, and that is to try their darndest as a plus 1162 underdog at home to take on FC Cincinnati, who's a minus 476. Then the late game, once again, Vancouver favored at Cartagines. And so the background on Cartagines FC is out of Costa Rica. Club Sport Cartagines Deportiva S.A. Costa Rican football club playing in the Primera. Home venue, Estadio Jose Rafael Feo Mesa, located in Barrio Asís of Cartago. Established 1906. The oldest club competing at the top division. They've won 4 Costa Rican League championships, 5 Nations National Cups, 1 National Super Cup, and 1 CONCACAF Champions Cup in 1994. You'll notice by the logo, when you see it tonight at 10, they are Los Azules, the Blues, or Brumosos, the Foggers, or La Vieja Metropoli, the Old Metropolis, 119 years ago. July 1st, 1906. Playing at the Estadio Jose Rafael Feo Mesa Ivankovic in Cartago, Costa Rica, to a capacity of 13,500. The club was founded in 1906 by a Canadian immigrant, Willie Peary, together with a group of Costa Ricans of British descent and some England immigrants that lived in Cartago. Since there were a few football teams at the time in the country, games were repeatedly held against teams in Cartago, such as Combate and Monte Libano. Teams' original uniform colors were red and blue. First official match seen as a local social event, as the Municipal Philharmonic played prior to the match. 1914, they got into Costa Rican football with a new name, the Americano. Lasted until 21, when the Primera started their national championship. They reverted back to Cartagines, went back to the white and blue. The 1923 national championship final saw Club Sport de Cartagena face La Libertad. First of 3 national titles. So back in 1923 is when they won their first national title. And so you have all of that background and history. Relegated back in 82. Unable to break Saprissa and Alajuelense's hold on the top position in the 90s. 21st century trying to push up. Most decorated player of the 2000s, Randall Brenes, known as Chiqui. 2017 second striker of the club after Leonel Hernandez to reach the 100 league goals cap, retired of 103 and 280 appearances. National title, they picked that up in the 21-22 season, beating Alajuelense in the aggregate, 4th league title, celebrating with bugles and flags that after 81 years, they had finally won the tournament. Also won the Costa Rican Cup. So 23, 36, 1940, and the Clausura in 2022, winning the Primera. CONCACAF Champions Cup 94, runner-up in the Copa Interamericana in 94, won the Super Cup in Costa Rica in 79, and they won the Costa Rican Cup 63, 84, 2014, 15, and 2022. So that is the quest tonight for Vancouver. Going to Cartago, Costa Rica, and taking on Cartagines as a favorite at a minus 147. So that's your rundown of your history for the teams tonight in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So very, very cool stuff there. And a couple of other pieces of news before we get out of here and then come back at noon. And Anthony Oliveri, writing for the 4-letter, from Foxborough, Mass. 2 weeks after dispute over World Cup security funding became public, FIFA reps did not provide clarity to Foxborough, Mass officials about the source of money during a tense town meeting Tuesday night. First floor of Foxborough's town hall, Mike Loyne, president of the 26 host committee, faced questions about who will pay the nearly $8 million the town estimates it'll need for public safety for the 7 World Cup matches at Foxborough. Foxborough town manager Paige Duncan told the 4-letter earlier this month the town is committed to hosting the global soccer tournament this summer, but needs clarification on funding by mid-March in order to grant FIFA the license required to hold the event. And so keep an eye on that for the $8 million of World Cup funding that Foxborough needs, and they need an answer on, so that FIFA can get their proper paperwork filed and ready to go for all of the matches that start when Scotland takes on Haiti on June 13 for the first one. They're also going to have one of the knockout matches, including a quarterfinal on July 9th. So that's your early notes from Foxborough, and something to keep an eye on for about the next month or so. And so keep an eye on all of that going forward. So Now, gossip, rumor, innuendo, transfer talks, all the things. We also got to get into what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, and get you ready for noon and get you ready for tonight. Morgan Rogers from Villa on the radar of PSG and Liverpool, as well as Manchester United and Arsenal. AC Milan set to dismiss interest in Christian Pulisic from 3 Premier League clubs. PSG, Liverpool are looking at Morgan Rogers, according to Team Talk. Rogers' reps are aware of interest contracted to Villa until 2031. AC Milan set to dismiss interest in Christian Pulisic from United, Arsenal, and Spurs this summer, according to Football Insider. Previous reports have indicated around an offer of €70 million could be required to tempt AC Milan to part ways with him, but the Rossoneri apparently want to hang on to him, as they should. Currently, their top scorer scored 8 times in the league. City lining up a move for a Newcastle right back Tino Livramento, according to Talk Sport, keeping tabs on him for several months. Long-term solution on the right side of the defense, where they have deployed Mateus Nunes, who is naturally a midfielder. Newcastle still want to have Livramento under a new contract at St. James, but he has not said that he's interested in doing so. Nick Voltemade unhappy at Newcastle, according to Bild. Only arrived from Stuttgart in August for €75 million. He wants to go back to the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich or Stuttgart on a return. 10 goals in 38 matches, all comps for the 6'6" striker. Talks are progressing between Liverpool and Dominic Szoboszlai regarding a new deal. Team Talk reporting no plans to part ways with him amid recent links to Real Madrid. Prepared to meet all of his demands, end quote, to ensure he stays at Anfield. 10 plus 6 in 34 matches across all comps. Current deal isn't set to expire until 28. Bukayo Saka's agreed on a new deal. It's going to keep him at the Emirates until 2031. Arsenal have no plans to part ways, according to Football Insider. No plans to part ways with Eberechi Eze. Bayern Munich unlikely to pursue a permanent move over Nico Jackson. 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Brighton looking to move ahead of Bayern in the race for Cologne forward Said El-Mallah, with plans also to sign his brother Malik El-Mallah, who plays for the club's development squad. That's from Florian Plettenberg at Sky Germany. PSG striker Kais Anelka is on the radar of Modena, according to Nicolas Schira. Borussia Dortmund have agreed on a deal worth an initial €7 million plus another 5 in add-ons for Cruzeiro left back Caio Prates from Fabrizio Romano. Ivan Toney open to a return to the Premier League. We talked about that one before. Everton expected to dismiss interest from Spurs over Kieran Dewsbury Hall. Brazilian second division club Remo are in talks to sign Jesse Lingard for the rest of the season. Played the past 2 seasons at FC Seoul, scoring 19 goals in 47 matches. That's from Globo. And Atalanta are planning to offer Gianluca Scamacca a new contract. That is from Nicolo Schira. Now, what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Brought to us by our friends at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. And with that, once again, that link is important. It is very, very important because with that link, it helps them, it helps us, and it helps you by adding more matches to everything that you're watching. With Fanatis, you get BN, you get all the BNs, which means you get Libertadores, which is going on right now, and the Soccer Metrics Copa Libertadores show, put together by our friend Howard Hamilton, is also now up on the network. Matches in the Libertadores today. We'll get into that as a part of what to watch. But you get all the BNs, home of AFCON. You get a lot of the A division and some B division action in a lot of the leagues around South America, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, Peru with Liga 1 and Liga 1 Max Pro. CATV has been available. TEC has the Copa Argentina. You get to watch those matches. You get Tigo Sports available to you as well for some matches. You get a lot of that on at Fanatis. TEC gives you Argentina, more leagues across South America, all in one place. One subscription, one home. Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. So today, Libertadores doubleheader, O'Higgins and Bahia at 5. And this is the other part that I like about Libertadores, is that legitimately one than the other. They don't broadcast them on top of each other. O'Higgins and Bahia at 5. Zeus, Apollo, Patrol. Barcelona and Argentinos Juniors at 7:30. CBS Sports Network has Champions League, Bruges and Atletico de Madrid at 3. being an Espanol, obviously, simulcasting Libertadores. Unimas has your matchup at Karabag at 12:45, and they also have Bodo Glimt and Inter at 3. Same for Tudene, and Tudene also has two of the matches in Champions Cup, O&M FC and FC Cincinnati and Cartagenas in Vancouver. So they don't have the 6 o'clock, but they have the 8 and the 10. Scottish Cup on the plus with Aberdeen and Motherwell at 2:40. La Liga, Levante, and Villarreal at 2. Fox O&E has the 6 o'clock with Defense Force and Philly and the 8. Paramount Plus, Serie A at 2:45, plus all 4 matches in Champions League. The one, once again, remember, Karabag at 12:45, the other 3 at 3 o'clock. VEEX has everything. Well, they have the 12:45 match. They have Bodo Glimt and Inter, and then they have all 3 matches in the Triple C. ESPN Deportes has UEFA Women's Champions League 12:45, Real Madrid and Paris FC, and then Arsenal and Leuven at 3 o'clock. And Paramount Plus has those same matches at 12:45 and 3. So busy day across the board for women in Champions League, men in Champions League, CONCACAF Champions Cup, and yes, a very, very busy day. Speaking of women's soccer, Birmingham City announced the sale of their women's team to their ownership group. Beat 2, 3, 4. Shelby Companies Limited, along with several independent investors, including Karen Carney and former women's number 1 Kim Kleisters. They've acquired a minority share of the club. It was within the 3% that was listed in the press release. The ownership group of Birmingham City, picking it up from a holding company, if I remember the math here. So Shelby Company, okay, so the holding company picks it up from the owners. So Shelby Company is a holding company through which Knighthead Capital Management controls the club. So holding company, once again, stop me if you've heard this before. So main owners sell to holding company, all but 3%, and that 3% is where Karen Carney and Kim Kleisters come in, purchased by, quote, several prominent business leaders and global professional icons. Statement only named Carney and Kleisters. And so now the sale moves them outside the men's team's company and once again selling to yourself and going, self, move it over there. Chelsea sold their women's team to Blueco for a valuation of around £200 million before last June. Villa agreed to sell their women's team to their own parent company, V Sports, for $55 million. Deals aimed at boosting revenue and ensuring compliance with PSR, profit and sustainability rules. Birmingham City women currently second in WSL 2. They can earn automatic promotion if they are finishing in the top places as part of the expansion program in 26-27. Then they now have 1 point separating their side from Palace and 3 points separating them from Bristol City and Newcastle. Third place team in WSL 2 gets a one-off playoff match against the last place WSL side. So they do it kind of like Germany. So top 3 teams in WSL 2, top 2 go up. Third place, the third place team takes on the last team in the WSL for the final place in the top flight in England next season. So you got to keep an eye on that. Let's see. Am I missing anything else involving the sport? I don't think so, but let me double check really quickly, and we will go through all the headlines and all the news and see if we've missed anything going forward. One other note from our friends at The Guardian, Osasu Obayawana, in discussing African soccer, a member of the CAF's executive committee has said the General Secretary, Veron Mosengo Omba, is, quote, occupying the seat illegally and must be made to stand down. Samir Sobha, president of the Mauritius Football Association, said he would not accept Mosengo Omba's presence at CAF meetings because the Swiss-Congolese lawyer no longer holds the position legitimately. Under Regulation 130 of CAF's Employment Handbook, 63 is the compulsory retirement age for staff, Mosengo Omba being 66. At the discretion of the president or the general secretary, a single 3-year extension can be given under regulations. Mosengo Omba became general secretary in March of 21 and was 63 on the 15th of October of 22. Given a 3-year extension, by Patrice Motsepe, which ran out on the 15th of October last year. And so now you have that kind of intrigue involving the executive committee. When Patrice Motsepe was asked about Musinga Omba after the executive committee meeting in Tanzania, Motsepe said, "Retirement is governed by our rules and regulations. We deal with those things not just in accordance with legality, but also with governance. We'll take the best decision as CAF concerning employees." So keep an eye out for CAF and the executive committee, where age and the guidelines are a part of the rundown when it comes to challenging authority, when it comes to the execco. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else this morning. I think we pretty much got it covered. So on that, thanks to Jess Charman, thanks to Will Palaszczuk, and thanks to all of y'all for being a part of everything. That's the rundown, getting you ready for CONCACAF tonight, with a little bit of SOT thrown in, so we get to learn about the clubs that are hosting tonight. Champions League, another busy day. And news from Atlanta United, Sergio Santos now in the fold, and it looks like he'll be in behind Latte Lot at center forward. That's where the majority of his minutes have been, and Fafa Pico out on the wing. So that's what you're building right now, and we're getting closer and closer to what's going on with Major League Soccer, and hashtag MLS is back here on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Once again, in just under an hour, Red Clay Wednesday, Red Clay Soccer Report. We're going to take a peek at what's going on in the high school game with stops at GMC Prep, with Brian Lawson, the head coach at Jeff Davis, and with Kelly Bowler, the head coach at Johns Creek. We'll get a Creek Cup postmortem and find out about 27 and what happened in 26. College coaches got to visit. Some stayed the entire Saturday for championship games at Johns Creek. We'll get that breakdown from Kelly Bowler coming up once again, top of the hour. 12-1, Red Clay Wednesday, the Red Clay Soccer Report right here on SDH AM. Tonight, 5:30, 7:30, it is Brookwood hosting St. Pius out at Brookwood Community Stadium in the Dave Hunter Athletic Complex. Maddie and Jason will have the calls for you. I'll be there for pre and half for those matchups, and we'll get you squared away for that one. Once again, thanks to our friends at Kaiser Permanente, because without them, we couldn't do it. Great sponsors and friends here, presenting sponsor for a lot of our material here at SDH and SDH AM and the SDH network across the board, especially our high school content. So back at it again, top of the hour. We go to the college game on the Red Clay Soccer Report, and then live high school action tonight from Brookwood. So for everybody here, thanks to all of you there. As we say, mucha plats, y'all play it safe. And since it's the end of the show, it means we get to do this. See you back here at noon.